It says this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant, and it asks for consent, so we're good.
We're good. Oh, fantastic. Well, I didn't put that in there. Jesus must have. Corrine and I were just in the background. Hey, Corine, how do you do this settings? Anyway, she said, brother, you got 2 minutes before you're going live. Do you want to be doing this right now? Anyway, it's all good. Thank you for your help. Together we pushed it over the line. So first of all, I just want to come up with a disclaimer that anything that I say today cannot be used against me or in a court of law. Nouk and I were having breakfast this morning and she said, do you know where we're starting? And I said, no. Do you know what the format is? No. Has it got any framework? I don't know. She said, this is so not like me. Thank you. Thank you, Nouk, for your patience.
I thank me too.
So guys, just a little background. It's an interesting journey when we look at it from arm's length. And I'd just like, for those who haven't been with us since 2016 when we started the TTC journey, I just want to do a quick overview. And it's interesting because Nouk and I speak about this quite a lot. So I sent out an SOS email to Nouk in late 2014 saying, from when her and I initially met in 1990, that I'm now ready to complete the victory lap and go all the way, no matter what. Well, that email took her 5 days to answer. And when she responded after the 5 days, she sent a big long email back to me saying, that's fine, but there's some conditions. And those conditions are this, and this. So she was really trying to flush out, if I had any hidden innuendos or conditions that I hadn't displayed on my first email to her. And I thought, wow, she's as vigilant today as what she was 25 years ago, and then some. So after some backwards and forwards, we decided to have 3 months to check each other's validity on this whole journey of wanting to go all the way and do the victory lap. So long story short, when I rocked up in the States in August in 2015, through willpower, I said, no, I don't have any guilt. Yeah, I'm going all the way. But it was the false Daniel doing all of that, and it was the willpower of the human mind that was saying a lot of it. And obviously I wasn't aware of it at the time, but today, going back in hindsight, I can see that I'm certainly not today who I was back then. So what's been going on in the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years is a huge transformation. When you look at the development of trust in the Teachers for God section 4 of the manual, you can see the undoing process and the relinquishment and the settling down. You can see all of those stages. You can see exactly where I was at the time, and I could even put the face of the clock and the calendar to most of those. But at the time, of course, I had no idea. You don't know what you don't know. So there's an awakening process through this transitional phase of change that takes place. And I just have immense gratitude for Nouk's patience. Endless divine patience. And she must have thought, to most parts, I don't know where the hell that bloke's at right now, but I need to exercise patience. So I thank you, Nouk, for your endless patience, your divine endless patience. So 2020 comes along and we get struck by this thing called COVID-19 globally. And I know it's been a challenge for a lot of families and cultures across the globe where people have lost their lives and left the bodies because of so-called illness. But for me personally, it was the greatest thing that ever happened because it forced me to stop traveling in my career, pushed me on an inward journey. And I'm eternally grateful for Dr. Zach Bush and the Seraphic Group to have allowed me to stay employed during that time and get paid and stay at home and go through all this transitional changes and go on this deep inward journey with an incredible amount of support from him himself, because he knew and does know of the work that Nouk and I have signed up for with the course and Holy Relationship. And he spent many days with us over the COVID period of the 2-year lockdown talking about Holy Relationship, and he understands the importance for the sonship of what we're doing. So fast forward, we're now talking about coming up to 3/4 of the way through 2022. And the previous 2.5 years would have been the most transformational period of Daniel in this body, in this lifetime, in this incarnation, due to that inward journey of having gone through all of what was required to do catch up for most parts, unknown to me at the time. What lay ahead was when we as a group went to Israel 2019, Nouk had a huge awakening in the museum where the Dead Sea Scrolls are held. And during that awakening process, she was completely nuked of all things human and awakened to a state internally of some cellular adjustment that was going to take her to a place of making the choiceless choice, becoming complete right-minded, out of the human realm into just spirit-mindedness. But after a couple of months of our return back from Israel, she could see that if she took on this continuation of this trajectory, she was going to leave me behind. So she actually put the handbrake on, stopped, and made a conscious decision that, excuse me, we had signed up to do this together. And I still needed to go through that final phase of what was going on during the COVID period. So if you go backwards and forwards, you could see that there was this divine joining of the dots and this symbiotic dance happening in the background that Jesus obviously had a big part to play to allow us to come into this beautiful, harmonious synchronicity of catching up and being on the same page together when we came out the other side. So again, thank you, Nouk, for your infinite patience to allow me to catch up. So 3/4 of the way through 2022, I had gone through the circle of fear. I'd gone through a whole bunch of different processes and phases and steps and whatever you want to call them. And I remember one day, Annie from Ted Poppy's group sent Nouk Helen's notes, just a single copy, and it arrived and it was plonked on our dining room table. And I said to Nouk, give me a quick background on the Helen's notes. And Nouk just gave me a 2-minute overview. And so I picked up the book and started reading it. And I knew that this was all part and parcel of his divine order in this whole process of Nouk and I doing the victory lap, because there was something in the notes that were ringing to some cellular memory inside of me. Although the first 80-odd pages makes absolutely no sense at all when you try and put it into some sort of format, because it jumps around all over the place. But the real essence in behind it all, if you put the form of it away and you just bring the content forward, there's some really, really incredible things that happen when you just sit with it and you just keep reading it and you have an open mind around. There's some holographic messages, there's transmissions in there. You can start picking up the relationship identification that's going on between Jesus, Helen, and Bill. The way he's speaking to her, the way he's speaking to Bill, the way he corrects Bill, corrects Helen, their exchange backwards and forwards. And I was getting really deeply engaged in this personal relationship building process. So it wasn't the content so much of how it's structured. It was the relationship of what he was doing with Bill and Helen that really caught me. So I'm sharing this with you because I think it's incredibly important that we don't get hung up on form. And I remember I had a conversation with Cheryl, my sister in Australia, and she said, "Oh, I bought the book and I've opened it up." She said, "It's driving me crazy." She said, "It's Jesus all over the place." And I said, "Yeah, but darling, who's saying that? Who's the one judging that it's all over the place? Just suspend your critical mind, stick with it, and just read it from a relationship, communication, relationship building perspective, and see what Jesus is doing with Helen and Bill. Just softly, softly, and you can see what he's actually trying to culture." And I went back over my notes this morning and I noticed that in the first 82 pages, and these things here, I love using highlighters. I'm an avid highlighter when I'm reading. And I noticed that in the first 82 pages of Helen's notes, I never drew this thing out once. I was so focused on just listening to what Jesus was sharing with Helen and sharing with Bill in terms of the relationship, not the content of structure, but just the essence of how he was aligning her mind to come into alignment with communication with him that could be a two-way communication stream, and with Bill. So it's going to be a little challenge for us as a group to just pick up the book, open it from page 1, day 1, and just start reading it and having an exchange around, paragraph 2, and this is what he's saying, and this and that, and have this exchange going on when there's a lot more going on at a level that we can't even comprehend. And what I mean by that is there's transmissions in it. It's holographic, as is the course, but it's really important. The message I got from it when I got to around that 80-page mark was that he had also brought me into alignment by me not having any judgment around how it reads or what he's trying to say. So it's whoever picks up the book, whoever just goes on the journey and suspends their analytical, critical thinking mind and just reads it for what it is. Let the conversations jump around, let the words go around, let him take the reins, get out of the road. Don't think about how something's supposed to look. Don't try and get ahead of him. Don't lay judgment. Don't think it has to look a certain way. And you too will receive what Helen and Bill received, what I received, I believe. And if you didn't, that's okay too. But the important thing for me to share with you guys is that there's something of a divine order that happens when he does his magic that we can't comprehend, we can't understand, and we can't put logic to it. And it's so deep and it's so beautiful and it's so subtle that he obviously has this down pat on how to circumvent the ego's analytical human thinking mind about how something's supposed to look so he can get through all the cracks and start doing his magic with all of us, opening us up, because we all have different ways to be accessed. We all have different ways to hear things. And he knows all of you personally. This morning, Nouk and I were having breakfast, and I said to her, you know, the part that really blows my mind more than anything else, totally, is that he can have a conversation with you, Nouk. He can direct you in your writing. He can direct Helen. He can direct Bill. He can direct Marianne. He can direct Corinne. He can direct Laurie. He can direct Mickey. He can direct Rebecca. He can direct all of us by guidance. And then 2 weeks later, he has this immense capacity to pick up with each of you where he left off globally, to every person, mankind in the sonship. We need to give him respect for that he can't and won't abandon any one of us anytime for any reason, and he'll pick up where he left off depending on our willingness, depending on our desire and devotion, an unequivocal mind to want to answer his call. He'll meet you right there. That's what I got from Helen's notes. It's not just him. He's not just communicating to Helen and Bill. He's communicating to all of us through the written word, through the transmissions that come through. It's so immensely, hugely, incredibly, divinely powerful that we can't even comprehend that. That's what I got as a takeaway. And I thought how small and how arrogant and how ignorant we are to think that we can or we can't or we shouldn't, or he doesn't or he can. So when I get to around page 82 in Helen's notes, he's really got my attention. I'm like, okay, you got me. I'm in. So out comes my highlighter and I'm on the journey with Bill and Helen and Jesus. So I stick with this as my daily ritual. I get up early hours in the dark of the morning and start reading and reading and reading and reading, having that beautiful cup of tea, watching the sunrise. And through this process, when I get right down towards the end of Helen's notes, I said to Nouk, I don't know if you've noticed or not, I said to Nouk, but I'm in, I'm done. It's it, I'm over the hump. Whatever's in this book has drawn me through the eye of the needle. I'm out the other side. Something at a cellular level has changed me. Not the human me, but the right-mindedness me. It's like the pendulum switched across and there's some other operating rhythm that's taken place. It's unequivocal. There's no choice anymore. It just is. It's done. So when we decided that we'd love to share this journey with you guys and talk about Helen's notes, I had some initial conceptual thoughts of how the heck are we going to share this when it had such a profound effect that can't really be logically explained. And I thought, to hell with it. Just go for it. Just do it. Just step forward into the abyss. Don't think about following something that can't be explained. Just do it. I've had a lot of pushback from Nookie. She's like, Nouk likes her structure. She's my devout, advanced, gorgeous, beautiful, miracle buddy, holy relationship partner. And she's like, anyway, I'll let her speak for herself. But there's been some backwards and forwards conversations around this whole Helen's Notes books that's going to challenge all of you for various reasons. And I know why. Because I too had those same challenges when I was in the initial parts reading it, but there was a part of me internally that was willing to look past all of it, because I thought that if he could have a relationship and communication with Helen and Bill 50, 60 years ago like he did, then so can I. I'm having it with Nouk, so why can't I have it with him? I'm having it with many other folks, so why can't I have it with him? So at the absolute level, the willingness part of Daniel that said, I'm in no matter what, and I'm going to plow through these 300 pages and I'm going to come out the other side and have an understanding of what relationship he had with Bill and Helen. I want that. I just want to have a feel of what it was like for the three guys to communicate backwards and forwards. The course as an outcome was a miracle in itself, but I just want the relationship communication thing. I just want that. I want to have a feel of what it was like to be in that space of feeling the connection. So the book's been sitting on my desk for some time, and I'm now not even a quarter of the way into the sparkly edition of the course, but I'm reading it with great interest, because as I'm reading in there and I share with Nouk essences of things that pop out to me, and I say to her, this is what he's saying here. And she said, oh, wow, that was taken out. And Nouk knows the course better than I know anybody to know it. And she, partly through the reading of the course, she'll finish sentences for me and she'll say, that word's been changed. So we have this beautiful cross collaboration of what's going on. So it's been an interesting process for me in terms of building trust. And I just want to talk about trust for a minute, because in the 6 stages of the development of trust in the section Teachers of God, it plays the biggest part in that whole section is around those 6 stages of the development of trust. And Jesus gave me a diagram some time ago, and I call it the tree of ascension. We can talk about that in another session. But I could clearly see now that once you get to level 4, that you can't go on without your brother, and you can't do it without a holy relationship partner. And I can see the metaphysics behind the enormity of some of the words that he's using in there about you will stay at this place possibly for a long, long, long time.
That's in stage 5, yeah? Just to... Right, okay.
Sorry, what was that?
That's in stage 5, yeah. Once you've got your mighty companions or companion, you're going to be there for a long, long, long time.
So thank you for that. The thing for me around trust is we won't really know trust fully until we've been willing to go through some process of having got rid of the false self that's holding back those experiences in those transformational, transitional phases of change. It's like me, if you had said to me 5 years ago, it's this, this, and this, and how do you feel? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But who's the one saying, yes, let's do it? When you've gone through the changes, you've come out the other side and you can say, yes, we did it. It's a complete different understanding of the process. So there's various elements in this whole journey that I can see can't be understood. It has to be experienced. Nouk, did you want to jump in and say anything around anything that I've shared so far?
I'm asking. And I'm listening. First thing I'd like to say is that, just to give you my perspective or my experience of what happened when Daniel was reading Helen's notes, was that there was an unmistakable, unequivocal shift in him. And I recognized that shift because that's what occurred for me in 2019 at the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I experienced that shift, but I must have experienced the first stages of that shift. And then through my own free will, and we all have free will, I put the brakes on it, right? To wait for Daniel. And that was in 2019. But I saw that same shift in Daniel when he was into Helen's notes. And this is, I don't know how many weeks ago this was, maybe, would it be 6 weeks from the time that we're recording, that you finished Helen's notes?
Yeah, about 6 weeks ago.
Would it be? Yeah. There's been such a shift in identity. That's the only way I can put it. That there's no going back. It's a permanent shift. It's not possible to go back to mythical me. Yeah, I recognize that. And so he's become completely unequivocal. Okay. And in that, and I'm seeing where I am not. Isn't that interesting? I'm seeing where I am not unequivocal. I see where I waffle, where I vacillate, still between the temptations of mythical me and the truth of my being, which is my holy self, the Christ, same as yours. So I'm watching all of this and I'm seeing that I have nowhere else to go now. I have nowhere else to go. And of course, reading in chapter 6, Jesus speaks about the lessons of the Holy Spirit and the 3 steps. The last step, I know I've talked about this before, but that last step, different than the 6 stages in the manual for teachers, that last step, Jesus says, is where we learn to be vigilant only for God, which is love, right? Without opposite, and his kingdom, which is us. Be vigilant for us. And that also, of course, incorporates the consistent minute-to-minute desire to see and know our own innocence. Along with our brothers and sisters, right? Because we cannot know our own innocence, which is our invulnerability here in the dream to anything that can attack us. We cannot know it unless we're sharing that with everyone. You've all heard this 1,000 times. Yeah. But having the desire for it, to experience it consistently, is absolutely life-changing. And so now Daniel sped the process up for both of us. And it's not just about both of us, it's about all of you as well, because we're all in this together. Okay. So that's what's happening. So I'd like to thank you, Daniel, for that. Thank you for stepping across the threshold. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember one night we were having dinner and and I was just right towards the end of reading Helen's notes, and I said to Nouk, you know, Jesus says in there very clearly and succinctly that we will get to a place where we just want to make a decision around doing his will, not somebody else's will. Like a foot in each camp, a foot in each canoe. You know, you've heard Nouk talk about this a lot, where we're straddling two worlds. So there's two wills going on. And I said to Nouk, I said, would you join with me in a shift where we redo our vows with him? And she said, yes, absolutely.
This is recently you're talking about?
Yeah, this is like 2 months ago,
Yeah.
7 weeks ago. And I said, I just want to do his will. I'm done. I don't want to have a foot in the world. Just want to do his will. Can we both join in that intention? So we held hands and both of us burst into tears. And we had this beautiful holy instant. And then we both said, we want to join you in your will, not somebody else's will, just your will. We want to follow your guidance and be led by you, period, from this moment forth. And this morning I said to Jesus, give me a card. You know, we pull out Jesus cards. And I pulled out a card and I went, wow, he's right on the money. The card I pulled was, I want the peace of God. To say these words is nothing, but to mean these words is everything. And that's when we had our holy instant, when we did our vows with that level of the change. If you could but mean them just for an instant, there would be no further sorrow possible for you in any form, in any place or time. And the reason I wanted to share that with you is since we've made that vow with Jesus, our life jointly, Nouk and I, has done a complete 180-degree flip. Literally. Career changes, abundance, money, health. People have come to our life. It's him that's done it. It's not us. It's not something that we went out and did. So there's a whole myriad of things that have come out of Helen's notes that can and can't be explained. And I'm just asking you guys to sit for a moment in silence. Close your eyes and just sit and feel into, is this the time where you too can do that divine, beautiful, gorgeous, miraculous paradigm shift in your life? Let's just join for a moment and have a little minute to ponder. I have the deepest respect for Bill and Helen saying there must be a better way. There has to be a better way. Because otherwise this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have had the course.
Just to interject here, because
Sure.
I guess to support what you're saying, yeah, it's I think the number one priority is not to intellectually read the book, Helen's notes. It's not an intellectual pursuit. At least that's not the priority. Yeah. As Daniel was saying before, it's more about feeling. It's a feeling state. It's a feeling the relationship that he is establishing with Helen and Bill. Yeah. And when you read it, stay tuned to that, right? Feeling into the relationship, because that's the content. The form is all of the words and the people they meet and they're talking about and all of that kind of thing, right? But it's feeling into the relationship, and especially feeling into how Jesus guides them. Yeah. Because contrary to what many course students still believe, Jesus and Holy Spirit can guide us very specifically. Very specifically. That means moment to moment, wherever we think we are and whatever we think we're doing. Yeah. So it's kind of setting your intent as you're reading, especially these first 80 odd pages, which I first judged as being a dog's breakfast, just all over the place. And I see now that it's really about feeling into that relationship and opening ourselves, setting our intention to open to have that same relationship with him. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really, really important, is to establish our intent, our desire to have higher guidance. Not just once a week, but how about have higher guidance every time we make a choice in our mind, every time we make a decision? Can you imagine? He guides us, and it took me 30 years to really realize this. He guides us so as to avoid pain. He guides us to avoid suffering. Yeah. So why wouldn't we want to have his guidance in every choice, every decision we make? Yeah. Yeah. Daniel, did you want to?
No, I was just going to suggest something. I don't know how you feel, but I was going to ask you, could you share with the guys that
how I write the book, or how I write? Oh God! Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, it's a shit fight, right, guys? I'm just going to be radically honest. Corrine knows this. And so does Nancy. Thank you both for helping me. But okay, so the Nouk, or the mythical me of Nouk, when she when she wants to write, there's an impulse that is uncontrollable that comes through, okay? And very naturally, that impulse immediately wants structure. It wants to know in advance what Nouk is going to write about. Well, wouldn't you, if you had to write something, wouldn't you want to know what you're going to write about? Yeah? Can you imagine how challenging it is to sit down and go, okay, I'm ready to write, but I have no idea what it's about. Okay. So when I work with Jesus, that's what it's like. It's been like that since day one, since I first began writing. And at first I really believed that there was something wrong with the process, with me, because it certainly wasn't flowing. One thing about Helen and how she heard the voice, it is, and I've learnt this, is that it's, you know, she heard guidance. She heard the voice, Jesus' voice. She heard it without interruption. She heard it sequentially. Do you know how important? Well, I thought it was important to hear or feel guidance sequentially, right? Well, I don't hear it sequentially very often. Mine is all sort of divided up and like a dog's breakfast. So, like I said to you before, the mythical me wants to know what the subject is in advance. It wants some structure, all right, and it wants some sequence. So let's begin and sequentially go through to write. Well, no, that's not the way that it happens with Jesus. The way it happens for me is usually I will have, at the very least, maybe 5 or 6 documents open, up to 10 or 12 documents open, right? And then when he instructs me, I will write 1 sentence on document 1 and then 1 paragraph on document 5. And I'll have no idea how to stitch the 2 together. Yeah. So, of course, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago when I was really in a quandary over this book, you know, a manual for holy relationship. Yeah. As you can see, look how thick that is. Yeah. Right. I was crying because I was just saying, why can't you give it to me like Helen? It just would make things so much easier for me. Yeah. And of course, the answer was no, it wouldn't be helpful for you for now. Not for now. Because what I had to do was my will, my separate will, the ego will, mythical me, had to learn to place aside, set aside its need to know in advance, its need to understand. Anybody else here are addicted to the need to understand?
Control.
I didn't want to say that, but you're dead right, right? That need to control. And he said, you have to give it to me. I'm like, well, shit. How am I going to write this book if I give over all my need to understand and my need to control? So his answer was, trust me. So I did. I trusted him. And the way that the books come together is it comes together. I mean, look, Corrine, you know, because you've helped to edit, and Nancy, you put the whole thing together and you didn't have a nervous breakdown. right? So there's something incredibly miraculous about all of this. And so that's what I'm learning. I'm learning that I have to give him my need to understand. I have to give him my need to control. I have to give him my need for structure. I have to give him my need for sequential input, right? And so I'm just giving you an example of that. Each one of you has your own mythical me addictions. Yeah. It'd be good to look at what they are, because they'll come up every day with different decisions or choices that you're making. And, you know, if you really want his help, you have to be willing to say, okay, I'll set it aside for now. I'll set aside my need to control for now, you know, with the option to take it back in half an hour, right? Which is what I did. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful for you. Yeah.
Thanks. No, beautiful. I just want to add one practical thing that happened to me that left me in no doubt at all of this seeming choiceless choice. We've installed some heating, cooling through mini splits on our house here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I decided that I want to have a go at doing the whole HVAC system, even though I don't know anything about it, governed by this new thought process change, that I want to hand over any seeming doubt and just say, well, if we're the Christ, then we can do whatever if it's under his guidance. So one thing that, you know, I come from a trade background, so I put myself through a fitter and turner and a welding course when I was very young, and I come from the building background, so I'm quite handy. And I decided that I was going to build these steel brackets for these big condenser units. But the old Daniel would have had his systematic approach to how it's seemingly done, because when you weld, for those of you guys who knows how to weld, the molecular structure of steel changes when you apply a lot of heat, and it can warp and twist and bend and go whichever way it wants to go. So you're always fighting this unless you understand the process. This time I decided I'm going to do it completely in his hands. So I cut out all the material, got my welder out, set up all the benches, and I went into this place of joining with him. And for 2 days I was welding, not the old style fabricating of the steelwork. And those 2 days just went bang like that. It was gone. Collapse time. There was no error. There was nothing to fix. I never checked anything. And when it was finished, it's been the most miraculous welding job I've ever done in my life. There's no twists, warps, bends. The thing's completely square. It's parallel. It's diagonally exactly, like, from an engineering standpoint, it's perfect. And I was like, wow, 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 wow. So the choiceless choice for me is now not up for question. The decisions has been made, the transfer of shift has been done, and I don't want to go back. You can't undo what you've seen or you experienced. I'm just encouraging you guys to open up, to have an expectation of living in this miraculous, new, effortless, divine order of unfolding. We're not here by chance. This family hasn't come together by chance. We're here because we've all at some place, time, signed up for the absolute. And I'm just eternally grateful for Ted Poppy and his partner Annie to have put together Helen's notes for the shift that it's made in my relationship with Nouk and the shift in perception. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting your hand up. So, with that done, should we start?
Well, yeah, let's start. We're only, oh my God, we're almost 1 hour in the illusion of time in. Yeah. So can we talk about like the difference between ego or mythical me's guidance and real guidance? Is anybody interested in that? Just an overview? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So because that's going to be, I believe, the foundation to what Helen's notes is pointing to for all of us, especially the first 80 odd pages or so. Yeah. And it's just really increasing our desire to want higher guidance from him, from either Jesus, Holy Spirit. That's what we want. It's want to increase that desire for that, because we know when we trust mythical me or the ego's guidance, it is going to lead us to some kind of suffering. Maybe not right away, but eventually. It always does. There's no avoiding that. So can we just go into, maybe I've got a few things here I'd like to share with you before we start reading the preface of Helen's notes. And the first thing is we might need to look at the diagram that Daniel has. Hopefully he has a diagram. If not, Corrine has a diagram. Sorry, Shoes.
Which one do you want?
The ego iceberg one in the book. Yeah.
Okay.
This diagram is from The End of Death, Volume 1. Most of you have this one.
You guys see it on the screen?
Have it? Yeah, it's on page 36 of that book, The End of Death, Volume 1. Okay, so this is a very primitive drawing. Can you make it just a tiny bit smaller, only so we can see the top of the iceberg? Yeah, that's it. Perfect. So you all see that? Yeah. Okay. So this is me. This is us. This is the false identity we believe we are, the ego, mythical me, as Corrine coined, right? This is it. As you can see, it's an iceberg, and probably 90% of it is submerged in the unconscious. Yeah. But around about 10% is viewable on top. Now, that 10% on top is what we consciously are aware of every day. Yeah. That is mythical me's, all of its decisions are made from that conscious awareness. At least it believes that its decisions are made from this conscious awareness up the top there, right? But what it doesn't realize is that there's 90% of the ego's unconscious beliefs are based on guilt, which is fear. And they're all unconscious, yeah, until such time as we begin to wake up on our spiritual journey and we begin to join with Holy Spirit or Jesus to make the unconscious conscious. Yeah? Because everything that happens to us, every relationship we have with our partners, children, colleagues, whatever, all of those relationships emanate from that 90% that's hidden, that guilt. And there is all of our daily, weekly, monthly, yearly sabotage. All of the body, all of the issues with the body come from these unconscious beliefs. Yeah. So I just wanted to give you an overview here until such time as we begin undoing, in other words, forgiving our own projections. Remember that all of our projections come from this ego thought system. Yeah. But what drives this unconscious ego iceberg and all of the sabotage and suffering that we experience is, this is what I found, is self-dishonesty. Are you with me? Self-dishonesty. So if you can sit here and say, look, 10% of me is self-dishonest and self-disloyal, but 90% of me is honest, self-honest, and self-loyal, I would say absolute bullshit. Because until you've undone most of this, you are going to be, the ego, mythical me, is going to be self-dishonest and self-disloyal. And all of that self-dishonesty and self-disloyalty gets projected out onto our relationships and onto our body as pain, as illness, as aging, and onto our beliefs in scarcity, onto our self-worth. How worthy are we, right? Well, that comes from the self-dishonesty and self-disloyalty, which is fear, which is basically self-hatred and self-attack. I know it sounds depressing. It's meant to be depressing because that's the truth. That's the truth. That's what's in the ego's bunker or the ego's iceberg, right? So, and the other thing too is it is so damn limiting. Nearly every decision we make, and can you imagine, we make hundreds of decisions, hundreds of choices a day, is based on this ego iceberg. And it all has one objective, and that's to keep God out. In other words, to keep our true self, our holy self out. The love, the inclusiveness, it's all to keep that out, right? So it would be our priority to expose all of this and to forgive it, and give it to Holy Spirit, and to do it as quick as possible to open ourselves up to its opposite, right? Which is, and the means by which we do this, other than forgiveness, is to want, to desire higher guidance, to desire Holy Spirit's guidance, not the ego's guidance. See, because that's the other thing too, is that while we're making choices or decisions based on this ego iceberg, mythical me, guess what? We'll be making decisions, all of them will be based on the ego's past. And every decision we make or choice we make based on the ego's past is going to bring us the same shit in the future, and it will just increase. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm just saying it because it's truth, right? So now the opposite to the ego, going to Holy Spirit's guidance or Jesus' guidance, is we open to receiving his guidance, which is really our own holy self, Christ guidance. And a lot of people have said in the past to me, I cannot hear Holy Spirit's guidance. And that might be because more often than not, it's not a voice. It's not like you hear a voice. Some people can hear a voice. I can hear a voice, yeah, but most people don't hear a voice. It's more often a feeling. It's an intuitive gut knowing. I think most of you have had that, know that, right? That is Holy Spirit speaking or Jesus speaking to you. It's a gut knowing. It's more of a feeling. It's more intuitive, and it can be given to you in beautiful signs. It might be on a billboard as you're driving to work. It might be on a song, in a song, the lyrics in a song. It might be something you're reading. It could come from your child, will give you Holy Spirit's guidance. It will come to you in a multitude of different forms. It could come in dreams, but it's available every single second. But are we present to receive it? That's the question. Because if we're coming from mythical me, which is this ego iceberg, we are not going to be present to his guidance. Every question we've ever asked, he has already answered. It is not something that he will answer in the future. It's already been answered now. And the issue is, are we willing to receive it? That's the question. Are we willing to receive the answer now? Because we cannot be in two totally diametrically opposed thought systems at the same time. If we're not hearing Jesus or Holy Spirit's guidance, it is because we are listening to the ego's guidance. We have to say no to one in order to hear the other, right? So when we're in Holy Spirit or Holy Self's guidance, there is there's the willingness to practice radical self-honesty. Yeah. So where we want to know where we're honest and where we're dishonest with ourselves. We want to know where we're being loyal to ourselves and where we're being disloyal. We want to know this. And if we're in special relationships, which most of us, all of us are, the ego hates that because it hates for us to look at where we're dishonest with ourselves and where we're disloyal, because it's so damn concerned with appearances in relationship. In other words, it's so concerned with the specialness dynamic in our relationships that it says it's terrified, because it's like, well, if I'm loyal to myself, if I'm honest with myself and with my loved ones, they're going to, they're going to reject me. All that has to go. when we're self-honest, when we're self-loyal, we're in self-love. That's what self-love is. And when we make that conscious decision to join Jesus and Holy Spirit in learning how to be self-loving, self-loyal, and self-honest, we do so for everyone. This is not a private affair. As we learn to open to our truth within, we help everyone to do that. Everyone. And we're teaching our children to do that. And what that leads to is self-trust. We're teaching everyone self-trust by demonstrating it. Yeah. And I've had a long journey with my own daughter, and many of you know about that. I nearly lost her twice to seeming death in the journey. Well, she's bounced back, and I've, in the process, of course, of saving her from death, oh, you've got to laugh, was I had to become self-honest, radically self-honest, radically self-loyal, and learn self-love so as I could be a demonstration to my daughter. And I believe that was a great component in saving her from her choice for death. And she's flourishing today with 2 young children. And she's taken on A Course in Miracles wholeheartedly, 100% as a result of that. Yeah. But see, I went through what you all would go through in that process, which was shit. If I communicate with her with, total self-honesty and self-loyalty, she's going to reject me, right? Think I'm a nutcase. Well, the opposite occurred. The opposite happened. And she is saved as a result of that. So that's why I'm telling you all of this from my own experience. Yeah. And so what we learn from this process is we learn genuine authenticity. Is mythical me starts to fall away because we choose not to listen to this ridiculous ego banter that's in our mind, and we choose to listen to the Holy Self or Jesus or Holy Spirit, because the message is always the same, and it is one of self-love to teach us how to trust in truth and love. And so that was just a little overview to share with you, just a little reminder. And I know many of you have done, 6 or 7 years with us now, and you know this inside out, right? But it's so good to have this as a reminder every now and again. Daniel, I have a lot more to say, but...
Yeah, please don't jump in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, beautiful family. It's so wonderful to have you join us here. It really is. Thank you for your willingness. I could kiss your feet. Thank you. So, what Jesus shared with me, and this goes hand in hand with Helen's notes, is he shared with me quite a while back that he wanted a personal relationship with not just me, but with all of his brothers and sisters. He wanted a personal, highly intimate relationship with you all. Can you feel into that? Can any of you sense the ego's immediate, oh, I was going to swear then, sorry, immediate get lost? You know, the ego, it's like you can come in through a book and through words, A Course in Miracles, but I don't want you in my private affairs, in my private mind, and especially I don't want you seeing all my secret thoughts, my secret sins. Anybody relate? Yeah. So, you know, I had to go through a process with Jesus where it was like, am I going to let him into my inner room, my most inner sanctum, where all the shit is? You know, it's got like 6-foot steel walls around it. Am I going to let him in to see all of this? Well, the only way that he could come in was if I was willing to give him the key to unlock my inner sanctum to come in. And then to flip the switch to the inner floodlights, which were like aircraft landing lights. Because I had stuff, you know, tucked away in little corners, under little objects everywhere, just in case the light came on. Of course, some things, other things like were hidden. No, everything was exposed. Everything. Was I willing? And the answer was yes. And he's asking all of us, please, will we, the deeper we let him come in to see everything, the more he can lift us up out of it, right? He can fill us with the light and the love that we are, with the truth that we are. I've got a lot to say, but I know that Lisbeth wanted to say something, so I might just hold here. Lisbeth, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to make, while you said it, he wants this personal relationship with you. I feel this overwhelming emotion.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know, but I can see, I almost don't believe it. And I want to believe it, that he wants a personal relationship with me. So I just want to hand that over, that I really want that. And I don't want to block it anymore.
I join you there, sister.
Amen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your heart's open. He's already answered and he's already there. You've let him in. You've let him in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe it's a good idea to offer up a moment for anybody else that wants to join in setting this intention and making the prayer.
Please, sis. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, family.
Amen. I felt that very deeply. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you'll see, as we go forth in Helen's notes, this is the way that I interpret what I've read so far, is that he is trying to give her and Bill a Course in Miracles to begin it. Yeah. And of course, to give the first 50 miracle principles. And as he gives each principle, her mind is very guarded against, I guess, it's a bit like you, Lisbeth, or all of us, right? It's like, well, who, me? Am I worthy? Does he really want to speak to me personally? Does he really want to have a relationship, an intimate relationship with me? Meaning intimate heart-wise, not physically, right? So, and it's all, this is the ego's doubts. And, all of that comes in. And because Jesus knows Helen and Bill, and he knows you, he knows mythical me's arguments in your mind. He knows them all. He knows every single thought you have. Can you imagine? And he loves you enough to want to come in. It's his great joy to come in and help you to sort your thoughts, to sort your beliefs, to eradicate fear, to eradicate guilt, to eradicate scarcity. He wants to do this. He wants to open you up to all of God's gifts here, now. It could only be the ego and its sense of worthlessness, which is really arrogance, because God knows with a capital K, our identity and our worth. He knows that we are eternally innocent, eternally. And I know I talk about this a lot, but it is everything, is that incorruptible innocence. He knows that is our holiness. Our holiness is uninterrupted. Uninterrupted. In your lifetime, you have never experienced one instant where you've lost your holiness. You've perhaps lost your awareness of your holiness because you've believed the ego in your mind, mythical me, but you've never lost your holiness, your incorruptible innocence. It stayed intact. It is luminous. It shines the universe. It shines through the universe, and it actually shines beyond the universe. That is how holy you are. If you could catch a glimpse of your holiness in this moment, your heart would be blown wide open and you drop to your knees and kiss your own feet. And from that love, all you would want to do is give it, extend it outward forever. It's a feeling state. Our holiness, when we become aware of it, it is a felt state. You can feel it. He wants you to feel it often, all the time, every day. Because when you allow that feeling to sweep through you, not only is he there, but all of your creations in heaven are surrounding you, including the angels. This is what heals. Our willingness to receive what has already been given us. No false humility here. No sense of unworthiness, which is fear. The ego is a thought system which is meant to protect us from our holiness. Its mythical me is meant to protect us from our incorruptible innocence. We don't want any part of it. I would like to share with you a few, and this is just a fraction from A Course in Miracles, right? It's just a fraction of some of the first person statements from Jesus to us. He wants an extremely up close, personal, intimate relationship with us now. Jesus says that if we would only ask him, he would help us so much more. I would like to read this quote from, it's from A Course in Miracles, the FIP version, from, I think it's from the Clarification of Terms, section 5. But listen to this. Is he, meaning Jesus, God's only helper? The question's being asked. Is Jesus God's only helper? No, indeed. For Christ takes many forms with different names until their oneness can be recognized. But Jesus is for you the bearer of Christ's single message of the love of God. You need no other. So you need no other message. This is it, right? It is possible to read his words and benefit from them without accepting him into your life. Yet he, Jesus, would help you yet a little more if you will share your pains and joys with him and leave them both to find the peace of God. Yet still it is his lesson most of all that he would have you learn. And it is this. This is the lesson he would have you learn. There is no death because the Son of God is like his Father. Nothing you can do can change eternal love. Forget your dreams of sin and guilt and come with me instead to share the resurrection of God's Son, and bring with you all those whom he has sent to you to care for as I care for you. That's Jesus right there. And this is him in the first person. He says, there is nothing about me that you cannot attain. There is nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. The difference between us now is that I have nothing else. I will never forsake you. I will come in response to a single unequivocal call. And that single unequivocal call is here now in our heart. And that is what he is answering. I will witness for anyone who lets me, and to whatever extent he permits it. Wow. Your mind will elect to join with mind, and together we are invincible. In other words, it's inevitable. When you unite with me, you are uniting without ego, without mythical me, because I have renounced the ego in myself and therefore cannot unite with your ego. Our union is therefore the way to renounce the ego in you. To join with me is to restore God's power to you, because we are sharing it. I will teach with you. He's speaking about our relationships, all right? I will teach with you and live with you if you will think with me. But my goal will always be to absolve you finally for the need for a teacher. You have reached your hand to me, and I will never leave you. We are one, and it is but this oneness that we seek as we accomplish these few final steps which end a journey that was not begun. So that's just a fraction of the lines in the Course where Jesus speaks to us in the first person. Just a fraction. Can you see how much he needs us as much as we need him? He adores us. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick?
Sure.
The dominion comes because we share it. All other paths are very individual. We learn about God, our relationship to God, and we take love your neighbor as yourself to an extent. But Jesus in A Course in Miracles is the only path that I'm aware of that says there's one of us here. And to take Jesus down off the pedestal, recognizing he's not special. He's the Christ, and he's showing us the Christ that we all are. The Christ is the dominion, and the access to the power is to know and share that Christ across the board with everyone. And that's the view of wholeness. One whole, equal, Christ and God, one in being, creation. And that's what Jesus offers us. He's the one teaching your brother's your savior. You don't even have to, be thinking about a God who seems far off. Pray and look to and find God in your brother, and then see it for yourself.
Beautifully explained, sis. Thank you so much. The ladder in the dream to take us back home, right? Mm-hmm. The final victory lap is holy relationship. So we can't go back home to God, right? The God source, completely heaven, the realm of knowledge, and escape the realm of perception or consciousness until such time as we have forgiven our brother, until we know, have the experience, and we know that our brothers and sisters, we are one with them. If we still have special relationships, if we still have any past grievances, etc., then we're going to fear God. So that's what in the Obstacles to Peace in chapter 19 of A Course in Miracles, he is very adamant about that, right? That's why we need the holy relationship, at least to begin it, in order to undo our unconscious fear of love, which is God, right? And it's our brothers and sisters, the Christ in them, that reveals the Christ in us. And that is that perfect holiness, or the perfect love, that enables us to let go of our defenses against that love and embrace heaven or embrace God. We can't embrace God until we embrace our brothers and sisters. Yeah. So that's that victory lap on the return. Every separated mind has to go through that eye of the needle. Otherwise, there will be too much of a fear of God. Sis, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that's it. It's about the sharing and the extension. So many perfect paths, so many beautiful masters that have blazed the light. But while you have a judgment against your brother, you can't come home. We left wholeness, oneness into separation. Does it not make sense that we return back to wholeness? And while the mind would omit one brother, we're blocked. And sis, I'm just moved to tears. I'm recognizing the momentous occasion of your re-emergence into teaching this morning. And I don't know what it means for later, but I just want to recognize that and honor that. So thank you. Not special, just recognition.
Oh, that means everything to me. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, that was a good start. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your hearts, your listening. Thank you for your love. We'll see you next Sunday morning.
Thank you, Nouk and Daniel. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank
Love you
Bye,
too.
Bert.
Love you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful
Thank you.
rest of the weekend.
You too.
Have a great week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.